Early in the morning of May 22, 2013, a somber and quiet atmosphere enveloped a small, peaceful village in Duqi County, Sichuan Province, China. Around 6 a.m., Xiang Ming, a gentle 30-year-old man who habitually rose early to prepare breakfast for his younger brother's family, suddenly failed to appear as usual. This unexpected absence began to worry his relatives. Around 8 a.m., when Xiang Ming's sister-in-law passed by the family's convenience store, she noticed the door was only partially closed and not securely locked, as was customary. According to routine, after closing each evening, Xiang Ming always locked the door from the inside before going to sleep. This immediately gave her an ominous feeling. Xiang Yun, Xiang Ming's younger brother and the store owner, rushed over. When he pushed the door open and stepped inside, a horrific scene met his eyes. His gentle older brother lay motionless on the bed in the back room. Strangely, 5 mineral water bottles were placed on top of Xiang Ming's body. The incident was quickly reported to police. Investigators from Duqi County immediately arrived at the scene. They determined that Xiang Ming had died around 3 a.m. that same day. There were no signs of struggle or scuffling at the scene. Xiang Ming appeared to have been attacked suddenly while sleeping soundly. The store's entrance and windows were all intact, showing no signs of forced entry or break-in from outside. However, the desk drawer in the store had been pried open, and some cash was missing. Notably, other valuable items like the telephone were left untouched. This led police to question, was this really an ordinary robbery? And why did the perpetrator place 5 mineral water bottles on the victim's body? Could there be some superstitious element related to this strange behavior? Xiang Ming, 30 years old, was a simple man who lived alone and always devoted himself to helping his younger brother Xiang Yun run the family convenience store. He also regularly slept in the back room of the store. Xiang Yun recounted that the two brothers were very close, and Xiang Ming had helped him greatly with house construction and childcare. This made suspicions about strangers even more difficult to explain. Xiang Yun reported that not much was stolen from his convenience store, and the merchandise showed no clear signs of being ransacked. Only 2 desks' drawers had been pried open, and the money inside had vanished. According to Xiang Yun, these 2 drawers were normally locked casually. One key belonged to Xiang Ming, while Xiang Yun kept the other for convenient bookkeeping. Investigators determined that the perpetrator had used a key to open Xiang Ming's drawer, then used a sharp object to pry open Xiang Yun's drawer. Xiang Yun estimated the stolen amount at over 2,000 yuan, approximately $325, mostly small bills and coins worth 4, 5, 9 yuan, or 5 jiao. Xiang Yun recalled that just 2 days before the incident, he had exchanged 1,000 Chinese yuan in small bills at the post office, including 100 new 10 yuan notes. He had used some of these, leaving about 40 to 50 notes that he gave to Xiang Ming to put in his drawer. This was a noteworthy detail that could become an important clue for police. However, the perpetrator's behavior remained contradictory. Why leave behind the mobile phone or cigarette packs of value, focusing only on small bills? Was the real purpose theft, or was this just a pretext to cover up another crime? Police suspected that perhaps the perpetrator didn't enter the store to steal, and this action was merely to mislead the investigation. This made Xiang Ming's death much more complex. Regarding the method of entry, police noticed something strange. The store's main door showed no signs of forced entry or lock breaking. Similarly, the surrounding windows and walls remained intact, without a single scratch or pry mark. This led to a notable hypothesis. The perpetrator had approached the store completely normally, without needing to force or damage any entrance. From this assessment, police proposed 2 main possibilities. First, this could be someone familiar with Xiang Ming, someone he would readily open the door for even at night. Second, the perpetrator might have snuck into the store beforehand and hidden until Xiang Ming locked up and went to sleep. However, the second possibility wasn't highly regarded for 2 clear reasons. The store space was quite limited, with few places for an adult to hide without being discovered. Moreover, given Xiang Ming's naturally cautious personality, having a stranger lurking in the store would hardly escape his attention. From the very first moments when Xiang Yun reported the crime, investigators noticed something abnormal. his overly calm attitude toward his brother's tragic death. While a normal person would show grief, shock, or at least strong emotion, Xiang Yun displayed a composure that was difficult to understand. This reaction immediately made police question his role in the incident. Suspicions increased when police realized that Xiang Yun was the only person, besides the victim, who owned a store key and could freely enter and exit at any time. Even more alarming were the strange comments he had made to some neighbors. Xiang Yun had suggested that perhaps Jiang Ming had done something foolish. However, this speculation completely contradicted what was discovered at the scene. Blood stains, mineral water bottles placed on the victim's body, and clear signs indicating this was an intentional homicide, not a personal tragedy. When questioned by police about these suspicious statements, Xiang Yun began showing confusion in his testimony. Initially, he completely denied what he had said, but when evidence was presented, he changed his attitude, awkwardly explaining that these were just passing thoughts without meaning. This inconsistency further thickened investigators' suspicions. Another detail also made police question the true relationship between the two brothers. From the beginning, Xiang Yun had definitively claimed they were biological brothers. However, when conducting deeper investigations and collecting testimony from local residents, a completely different truth gradually emerged. In reality, Xiang Ming and Xiang Yun were only distant cousins, and Xiang Ming had been adopted by Xiang Yun's family when very young. This wasn't a direct blood relationship as Xiang Yun had declared. When confronted with clear evidence, Xiang Yun was forced to change his story. This time he argued that although they weren't biological brothers, their feelings were like flesh and blood brothers, trying to minimize his initial deception. However, deliberately concealing this true relationship made police even more suspicious about the real motives behind Xiang Yun's testimony. The situation became more complex when information from the local community was revealed. According to some residents, Xiang Ming had recently begun seriously considering marriage. This information opened a completely new perspective on potential motives. If Xiang Ming truly married, what would inevitably happen is that he would separate from Xiang Yun's family to build his own home. And then, the issue of property division would become unavoidable. Specifically, the money that Xiang Ming had accumulated from years of working away from home, a considerable amount, possibly reaching tens of thousands of yuan, would need to be calculated and divided. The crucial question arose, could this be the motive that drove Xiang Yun to kill his brother? However, when police investigated Xiang Yun's alibi for the night of the murder, both he and his wife firmly insisted they had been home all night. Xiang Yun's wife's testimony completely supported this version. Despite many suspicious points, without physical evidence or direct witnesses, police still couldn't conclude definitively that Xiang Yun was the perpetrator. Recognizing the need to expand the investigation, police decided to simultaneously collect and analyze other possible clues at the scene. An interesting discovery emerged when they carefully examined Xiang Ming's bedroom. Here, investigators found 4 cigarette butts that had been smoked. 3 of these belonged to ordinary cigarettes that Xiang Ming regularly smoked daily. However, the 4th cigarette butt belonged to a premium brand with an expensive price. This clearly wasn't something that Xiang Ming, a person living simply and frugally, had ever used. This discovery revealed important information. On the night before the tragedy occurred, someone else had visited Xiang Ming. This person had not only stayed long enough to smoke, but also had to be someone Xiang Ming trusted enough to invite inside. This was particularly noteworthy because, given his naturally cautious personality, entertaining guests at night was reserved only for those who were truly close and trustworthy. Through investigation, police identified the owner of the premium cigarette butt. It was one of Xiang Ming's nephews. This person had visited his uncle on the evening of May 21st, just hours before the tragedy occurred. However, hopes for a breakthrough clue were dashed once again when this nephew provided solid alibi evidence for the time of the murder. The case became increasingly tangled. The scene, after being visited by many people, had become chaotic, with fingerprints and footprints mixed together, making forensic evidence collection extremely difficult. All clues related to people acquainted with Xiang Ming seemed to lead to dead ends, yielding no results. At this point, an investigator had a bold idea. Instead of just focusing on the main door and windows as traditionally done, could there exist a third entrance they had overlooked? When observing the house's architecture more carefully, investigators noticed an interesting feature. Because it was built on land with natural elevation compared to the surrounding rice fields, the house created a space underneath, like a small basement supported by sturdy concrete pillars. From ground level, there was a small staircase leading down to this area. This lower entrance had initially been deliberately blocked by the homeowner using many old wooden boards and empty beer bottles, creating what seemed like a sealed barrier. However, investigators still decided to carefully check whether someone might have found a way to squeeze through these gaps. After careful measurement, they discovered that although there were some gaps between the blocking boards, even the largest opening was extremely narrow. The possibility of an adult squeezing through without leaving any traces was extremely difficult. The case seemed to fall into an inescapable dead-end spiral. Recognizing the importance of time, police expanded the investigation scale with determination not to miss any clue. They conducted interviews with every household in the area, paying special attention to people with late-night habits, from night shift workers to those who might have suffered insomnia on that fateful night. Their goal was clear: to search for any unusual sounds that might have occurred during the time of the crime. Particularly, investigators paid special attention to dog barking. They understood that in such a quiet rural area, guard dogs would be a natural alarm system, reacting sensitively to any strange movement in the dark. This strategy yielded results. Some residents reported hearing dog barking combined with human voices around 2 a.m., just 1 hour before the estimated time of the murder. The voices they heard had clear local accents and seemed to belong to young people. Police quickly proceeded to identify people who might have appeared in that area at this specific time. The search led them to a couple, a man and a woman. However, hope was dashed once again when these two provided reasonable explanations for their presence. They were people who regularly went out to catch eels at dawn. More importantly, they could prove that their eel-catching activity took place from 4 a.m. and lasted until near morning, completely not overlapping with the time Ming was murdered around 3 a.m. Their alibi was further strengthened by other independent witnesses. Physical evidence at the scene seemed to be gradually exhausting its ability to provide useful information. The mineral water bottles, the strangest detail of the case, had been carefully examined for fingerprints, but the results were disappointing. Most fingerprints on the bottle surfaces had become blurred, possibly due to time or suboptimal storage conditions. Among the few fingerprints that could still be identified, only one was clear, but it belonged to Xiang wife, the store owner. This was completely reasonable since she regularly handled merchandise in the store, thus providing no new information for the investigation. With main clues gradually becoming hopeless, the Ming case began to become a mystery story. Local residents buzzed with discussion about the tragic death of the gentle man and the mysterious detail about the mineral water bottles, while police continued to struggle to find answers. Facing the deadlock situation, the investigation team's morale began to drop. In this heavy atmosphere, a summary meeting was convened hoping to find a new direction. At this meeting, an investigator made an observation that seemed simple, but was actually very profound. Besides the stolen amount of over 2,000 Chinese yuan, approximately $325, there was something else that had mysteriously disappeared: Ming's set of keys. This investigator pointed out that this wasn't a random detail. This key set had special significance. It could not only open Ming's cash drawer, but more importantly, it could also open the store's main door from inside. So if the purpose was simply theft, why would the perpetrator need to take these keys? This detailed analysis opened a completely new perspective on the motive and method of committing the crime, forcing police to re-question the true nature of the case. When delving into the mystery surrounding the missing key set, police made a noteworthy discovery. Among the disappeared keys, one was used to open a travel suitcase belonging to Ming. Interestingly, this suitcase was secretly and carefully hidden by Ming, with very few people knowing of its existence. Only those truly close and trusted by him could have this information. Police proceeded to open this mysterious suitcase. However, they only found 8,000 Chinese yuan, approximately $1,300, in cash along with some old clothes that had been neatly folded. Disappointingly, there were no savings books, bank cards, or any other important financial documents. This result not only disappointed police, but also Xiang Yun. According to information from acquaintances and Xiang Yun's own account, Xiang Ming had spent many years working abroad and was known to be very hardworking and frugal. The money he had accumulated during years of working away from home was estimated at around 100,000 yuan, approximately $16,250. So where had the remaining money disappeared? Had Xiang Ming lent it to someone informally without official documentation? Or did he have other secret storage places that even relatives didn't know about? These questions once again pushed the case into a deadlock. Recognizing that continuing to cling to complex and tangled clues at the scene wasn't yielding significant results, police decided to completely change their investigation tactics. They returned to a detail that seemed trivial but could contain great potential: the new 10 yuan bills. Although the banking system couldn't provide specific serial numbers for these small denomination bills, police still believed in simple logic. With a significant quantity like 40 to 50 brand new 10 yuan bills, surely someone in the community, whether ordinary citizens or store owners, would have encountered them. Police deployed a large-scale and meticulous search campaign. Investigators were sent secretly throughout Xinzhuang town and all of Weiqi County with the mission to trace every transaction using new 10 yuan bills. This was work requiring patience and attention to every detail. They had to visit every store, grocery stand, small market, even street vendors to inquire about these special bills. The search continued for 3 days with high intensity, exhausting investigators but not dampening their spirits. Finally, their persistent efforts were rewarded. At a mobile phone store in Xinzhuang, a breakthrough clue appeared like light at the end of the tunnel. The store owner recounted that not long ago, a teenager had come to buy a phone, and what was special was that he paid entirely with very new 10 yuan bills. Although the store didn't have a surveillance system, fortunately, the store owner had a good memory and was able to identify this special customer: Zheng Tao, a 15-year-old boy living in a village several kilometers away. This information was like a fresh breeze blowing into the stagnant investigation. Police felt a strong wave of hope, with the feeling that the key to unlocking the case's mystery was finally within reach. However, that excitement was quickly tempered by a logical question. Could a child, not yet 16 years old, really be capable of carrying out such a brutal and calculated murder? With years of professional experience, police decided not to rush to conclusions. They proceeded to gather more information about Zheng Tao through the school where he studied. Here, they discovered an important additional detail. Zheng Tao had a younger brother named Zheng Lei, only 13 years old. To ensure absolute accuracy, police brought photos of both brothers to the phone store for the owner to identify. After careful observation, the store owner gave definitive confirmation that the person who had come to buy the phone with new 10 yuan bills was exactly Zheng Tao. Information about the suspect's identity truly shocked the entire investigation team. When first confronting Zheng Tao, instead of showing fear or confusion like normal children when questioned, Zheng Tao displayed a coldness and composure that was deeply concerning. However, with experience and professional interrogation skills, police gradually broke through this hard shell. Finally, under pressure from undeniable evidence and skillful interrogation techniques, Zheng Tao was forced to confess the truth. Notably, even when admitting his crime, he still showed no remorse or considered himself a bad person, as if his actions were just a normal choice. When asked about motive, Zheng Tao's explanation seemed shockingly simple. It was all for money. He needed money to feed his online gaming addiction and to pay debts to his grandmother. A debt of several hundred yuan that, while not large, was extremely burdensome for the family situation. The story about his grandmother opened a tragic picture of Zheng Tao's childhood. She was the one who had replaced the role of parents, single-handedly raising him from infancy. Zheng Tao's parents had decided to leave their children behind to work far away when he was only a few months old, leaving 2 children, Zheng Tao and his 13-year-old brother Zheng Lei, in the care of their grandmother who was over 70 years old. Throughout 15 years of life, He had only seen his parents about 15 times, mainly brief visits home during Chinese New Year. Most of the remaining time, he lived with his elderly, frail grandmother and younger brother. When reporters visited Zheng Tao's family, they witnessed firsthand a heartbreaking reality. The house was severely deteriorated, not repaired for over 3 decades, clearly reflecting the family's chronic poverty. Zheng Tao's grandmother shared that the entire family lived only on meager social assistance, each person receiving only 55 Chinese yuan, about $9 per month, a tiny amount compared to basic living costs. Ironically, although Zheng Tao's parents had gone out to work hoping to earn better income, they rarely sent money home to support the family. In fact, Zheng Tao's father, who worked as a construction contractor, not only couldn't help the family, but was also burdened with debt reaching hundreds of thousands of yuan, making the entire family's financial situation even more difficult. The lack of both material and emotional support in the family had pushed Zheng Tao to seek another world, the virtual world of online games. The crucial turning point in his life was during middle school, when his parents decided to divorce. This event was like the last straw that broke the camel's back, causing Zheng Tao to completely turn his back on reality and sink into the gaming world. Instead of focusing on studies like normal children, Zheng Tao chose a different path. He frequently skipped school to go to internet cafes. His gaming sessions often lasted through the night, sometimes up to 10 consecutive hours without rest. By the time of the crime, theoretically, Zheng Tao was old enough to graduate from middle school. However, he had completely lost interest in studying. In the mind of a 15-year-old, Zheng Tao had convinced himself that having a middle school diploma was meaningless. He observed that even ordinary labor jobs like factory work required high school diplomas or even college degrees, making him feel his future was dim and hopeless. At the beginning of the year, just a few months before the incident, Zheng Tao's father had sent home 500 Chinese yuan, about $81, to help the family prepare for spring planting. This was not a small amount for their circumstances. However, instead of telling his grandmother, Zheng Tao decided to hide it and use the entire amount to satisfy his gaming addiction. As predicted, the 500 Chinese yuan was quickly spent in continuous gaming sessions. When money ran out but the gaming craving didn't subside, Zheng Tao began to feel desperate. In this situation, he looked toward Ming's convenience store, a place he passed daily on his way to school. In his haunting confession, Zheng Tao revealed that Ming's store wasn't a random target. Before this murder, he had broken in twice by crawling through the small hole that police had discovered under the floor. Through these 2 previous reconnaissance visits, he had obtained nearly 1,000 Chinese yuan, about $162. After each theft, Zheng Tao was very meticulous and careful, skillfully rearranging the barriers at the entrance so no one could discover traces of the break-in. These petty thefts had prompted Ming to decide to sleep in the store for security, a fateful decision leading to the final tragedy. On the night of May 21st, around midnight, with empty pockets and an uncontrollable gaming craving, Zheng Tao once again crawled through the familiar hole to make his 3rd visit. In the mind of a 15-year-old, he simply thought everything would proceed like the previous 2 times. Ming would sleep soundly, and he could take some money and leave without anyone knowing. However, fate had other plans. When Zheng Tao was rummaging through the store, Ming suddenly woke up and shined his phone's flashlight on the boy's face. Both immediately recognized each other. Ming knew this was the child who regularly passed the store on his way to school, while Zheng Tao was also familiar with the store owner he had visited before. In a moment of utter panic, survival instinct and fear of being caught completely controlled Zheng Tao's reasoning. He hastily grabbed a wooden stick from the general storage area and attacked Ming savagely and repeatedly. In a state of panic and loss of control, Zheng Tao couldn't remember exactly how many blows he struck, only knowing he didn't stop attacking until Ming lay motionless on the bed. To ensure the victim couldn't call for help or make any noise, Zheng Tao used a blanket to cover Ming's head, then placed 5 mineral water bottles on top of the victim's body. After completing the brutal act, Zheng Tao's survival instinct urged him to carry out his original goal. He searched for keys from Ming's body and used them to open the victim's cash drawer. However, Yun's drawer didn't have a corresponding key. Not giving up, Zheng Tao found a screwdriver in the store and used it to pry open this drawer, taking all the remaining money inside. In total, he obtained over 2,000 Chinese yuan, about $325, including those brand new 10 yuan bills that Xiang had exchanged just a few days earlier. Unlike previous times, this time Zheng Tao didn't use the old route to escape the scene. Instead, he used Ming's key to open the main door from inside, then left it slightly ajar. This action also explained why police initially found no signs of break-in from outside. To eliminate evidence, Zheng Tao carefully buried the key and screwdriver in a nearby field, while the wooden stick used for the murder was thrown into a pond near his home. With the money obtained from the crime, Zheng Tao used 500 Chinese yuan, about $81, to pay back his grandmother. The remaining money was used to buy new phones for both himself and his brother. Zheng Tao's detailed confession helped police quickly recover the physical evidence. They found the key and screwdriver in the field he indicated and retrieved the wooden stick from the pond. This evidence completely confirmed his confession. After the case was solved, his brother was taken away by other relatives for care. In the old, dilapidated house, now only the grandmother over 70 years old lived alone. She knew about the crime her grandson had committed, but no one could answer her painful question of whether she would ever have the chance to see again the child she had single-handedly raised from infancy. The case's conclusion was not only punishment for Zheng Tao, but also a wake-up call for parents. Zheng Tao had lacked a healthy family environment from childhood. Although he had parents in name, their family function had been lost. Zheng Tao's parents, who had left their children to work far away when he was only a few months old, had created a psychologically orphaned child. He grew up without the necessary care, guidance, and love from parents that his grandmother, despite her best efforts, couldn't completely compensate for something that affected the character formation of a growing child. When the family couldn't provide the necessary sense of security and support, Zheng Tao found dependence on the virtual world, increasingly sinking into it, neglecting studies and gradually losing direction in real life. Zheng Tao's case is a profound tragedy, exposing cracks in modern social and family structures. It shows the devastating consequences of the absence of love, education, and proper guidance for a child. Zheng Tao went from a fun-loving teenager short of money to falling into a path of crime, culminating in the murder of Ming, an impulsive act during a moment of panic. Although Zheng Tao was a minor with the charge of murder, based on the case factors and mitigating circumstances, he was sentenced to 12 to 15 years in prison. The story of Zheng Tao and other left-behind children is an expensive lesson for all of society. It reminds us of the undeniable importance of family in shaping a person's character and future. And that's it for today's case. Thanks for watching and see you in the next videos.